Sunday night, about 9:40. You've got work in the morning, and you're sitting in a plastic chair that was probably beige back in 1998, watching a dryer spin. There's a TV bolted to the wall with the sound off. The change machine behind you keeps making that grinding noise like it's clearing its throat. And you're mildly irritated because you just broke a 20 into quarters and the machine ate 50 cents of it and gave you nothing back. I've been that guy. For about 3 years in my 20s, I lived in a place off North High Street in Columbus with a landlord who told me the building had laundry access. That meant a laundromat 2 blocks away. So every Sunday, I'd haul a black trash bag full of clothes down the sidewalk, and I'd sit in that room for 2 hours and I'd think about how depressing the whole thing was. Here's what I didn't understand at the time. That room, the one I felt sorry for myself in, was doing better than most of the small businesses on that entire street. Better than the sandwich shop. Better than the nail salon. And it was doing it with no employees on site, no inventory, no menu, and no customer service. There are roughly 29,000 laundromats operating in the United States right now. Together, they pull in somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 billion a year in quarters, cards, and app payments. $5 billion from an industry where the average owner drives a used truck and does the plumbing himself. So the question I want to answer today is a simple one. If laundromats are so good, why does nobody talk about them? And the answer is going to end up being the most interesting part of this whole video because it has almost nothing to do with laundry. Let's start with what a laundromat actually is, because it is not what you think it is. You think it's a laundry business. It isn't. A laundromat is a machine that buys water, gas, and electricity at wholesale rates and sells them back to the public in 6-minute increments at an enormous markup. You are not in the clothing business. You are a tiny, unregulated utility company with a coin slot. I want you to sit with that for a second, because everything else flows from it. A commercial 40-pound front-load washer uses about 22 to 25 gallons of water per cycle. In most American cities, water and sewer combined run you somewhere between $8 and $15 per 1,000 gallons. So the water in that wash cycle costs you, call it 25 to 30 cents. The electricity to spin the drum is pennies. The gas to heat the water is the real cost. And even then, you're looking at maybe 40 or 50 cents all in, and you charge $5 for it. That's the whole business. Everything after this is just details about how many times a day you can pull that trick. Now, the number that runs everything in this industry is something called turns per day. Nobody outside of laundry uses this term, and inside of laundry, it's the only thing anybody talks about. Turns per day means how many times each washer gets used in an average day. You take your total wash cycles for the month, divide by the number of washers, divide by the number of days. That's your turn count. Under 3 turns a day, the store is sick. 4 to 5 is healthy. 6 or above, and you've got a location. People drive past 2 closer laundromats to reach. I had a friend named Ray Delgado, guy I used to work with before he got out of finance entirely, who bought a laundromat outside Phoenix in 2017, 2,400 square feet in a tired strip mall, next to a check cashing place and a Little Caesars. He called me the week he signed the papers and said, and I'm quoting him, "I just bought a car wash for clothes." He was so proud of that line. Ray sent me his actual numbers after year 2, and I want to walk you through them because a real P&L tells you more than any theory I could give you. Gross revenue, about $312,000 a year, 32 washers, 28 dryers, running roughly 4.2 turns a day. Now the costs, and this is where people who have never owned one get surprised. Water and sewer, $34,000. Gas, $28,000. Electric, $19,000. That's $81,000 in utilities, which is 26% of everything that came through the door. 26%. If you've ever run a restaurant, your utilities are maybe 4%. This is a business where the electric bill is a main character. Rent, $58,000 a year, triple net, so he's also paying his share of the parking lot and the property taxes, That's about 19% of gross. Labor, $46,000. Ray had an attendant on site from about 11 in the morning to 8 at night, 6 days a week, because his store did wash, dry, fold, and somebody had to be there. Then everything else: insurance, repairs, parts, cleaning supplies, the card processing fee, the alarm system, the guy who comes to fix the dryer vents. About $32,000. Add it up, and Ray was netting somewhere around $95,000 a year. Now, here's the part where you find out whether you actually understand small business or you just watched a video about it. Is $95,000 good? Because I've watched people react to that number in two completely opposite ways. Half of them go, "That's it? 95 grand for owning an entire building full of machines?" And the other half, the ones who've actually bought something, immediately ask the only question that matters. What did he pay for it? Ray paid $340,000. That's a 3.6 multiple. He is earning $95,000 a year on a $340,000 purchase. That's a 28% yield on the asset. Now go look at what people pay for a decent apartment building in this country right now. A 5% cap rate. A 6 if you're lucky, and it's in a market nobody wants to live in. People are lining up, writing offers, waiving inspections, all to get a 5% yield on real estate. And Ray, in a strip mall between a Little Caesars and a check cashing place, is clearing 28. So why doesn't everyone do this? Hold that thought, because I'm going to answer it. And the answer is the entire point of this video. But I need to show you 3 more things first. The first thing is the lever. Every business has one number that, if you move it, everything else moves with it. In a restaurant, it's food cost. In a laundromat, it's your vend price. The price on the machine. And here is the strange, slightly uncomfortable truth about laundromat customers. They are not very price sensitive. Not because they have money, usually the opposite. It's because they don't have a car, or they don't have the time, or the next closest store is 1.5 miles away and it's 104 degrees outside. The decision to do laundry is made before the price is considered. The price is discovered in the parking lot. So watch what happens when Ray raises his wash price by 50 cents. 32 washers, 4.2 turns a day, that's about 134 cycles a day. Times 50 cents is $67. Times 365 days is roughly $24,000 a year in additional revenue. Now, how much did that cost him? Nothing. Zero. He didn't buy a machine, he didn't hire anyone, he didn't use 1 extra gallon of water. That $24,000 falls straight to the bottom line. His net just went from $95,000 to $119,000, a 25% increase in his income for the cost of an afternoon changing stickers on machines. And it gets better. And this is the part that people miss. If laundromats trade at 3.5 times earnings, that $24,000 of new profit just added roughly $84,000 to the value of the business. He created 84 grand of net worth by walking around his store with a label maker. Ray lost about 4% of his volume for a couple of months. Then it came back. It almost always comes back. The second thing I need to show you is where the real growth is, and it's not in the machines at all. I met a woman named Marisol Cabrera at a trade show in Vegas maybe 5 years ago. One of those industry conventions where the carpet smells like new plastic and everybody's wearing a lanyard. She had bought a store in San Antonio that was, by her own description, dying. 3 turns a day, aging equipment, revenue going backwards every single year. And she didn't buy new machines. She hired one more person and put a sign in the window that said, "Drop off laundry, $1.75 a pound. Wash, dry, fold." You bring a bag, you leave. You come back, it's clean and folded. Within about 18 months, she was doing 400 pounds a week. That's $700 a week, $36,000 a year, on top of everything she was already making. After the extra labor, she was keeping maybe half of it. But here's the elegant part. And this is why I still think about that conversation. That laundry runs during her dead hours. 10 in the morning on a Tuesday, when the store is empty. She was using capacity she was already paying rent on. Then she started doing pickup for 3 Airbnb managers and a small chain of hair salons, commercial accounts, sheets, and towels, every week, same day, no negotiation on price. Boring, predictable, contracted revenue in a business that otherwise lives and dies on whether it rained on Saturday. By the time I heard from her again, she'd bought a second store. The third thing is the part that nobody puts in the brochure. Everyone selling you on this business will use the phrase semi-absentee, as in you'll work 10 hours a week and collect checks. I want to be careful here, because I don't think that's a lie, exactly. I think it's true, right up until the moment it isn't. A guy I know named Tommy Nguyen owned a store in the Chicago suburbs. Nice store, well-run, good numbers. On a Friday in January, his water heater failed. Not leaked, failed. And a laundromat without hot water is not a laundromat, it's a room. He was closed for 9 days. Between the replacement unit, the plumber, the emergency permit, and the water damage to the floor, he was out about $26,000. And that's before you count 9 days of revenue he never got back, plus the customers who found another store and just never came back. That's the business. 95% of the time it runs itself, and you feel like a genius. 5% of the time you're standing in 2 inches of water at 11 at night on the phone with a plumber who wants triple time. And there's a slower, quieter killer too. And honestly, it's the one I'd worry about more. Your lease, because you don't own that building. And your entire operation, every machine, every water line, every gas connection is bolted to a floor somebody else controls. When your 10-year lease comes up and the landlord has watched you succeed for a decade, guess what happens to your rent? I watched this happen to a guy in Denver about 6 years ago. Store was doing fine. Lease came up. The landlord had done the math, knew exactly what the store was making, and asked for a 40% increase. Now, moving a laundromat is not like moving an office. You've got $150,000 of equipment plumbed into concrete. The build-out on a new space is $200,000 and up. He had no leverage. None. He paid it, and his net income got cut roughly in half overnight. So when experienced operators evaluate one of these deals, they read the lease before they read the P&L, 10-year term minimum, with options, capped escalations. And the sophisticated ones eventually try to buy the building, because the only person who can never raise your rent is you. Okay, now let's go back to the question I left hanging. 28% yields, recession-resistant, essential business, no inventory. So why is this thing sitting there for anyone to buy? Why does capital not flood in and crush that return down to 5% like it does everywhere else? Here's the answer. Because you cannot prove the revenue. It's a cash business. A guy hands you a spreadsheet he typed himself and says the store does $18,000 a month. There's no point of sale system. There are no credit card statements. There's no third-party record of a single quarter that went into a single machine. His tax return shows whatever he decided it should show, and if he underreported for years, he now has an incentive to tell you the real number is much higher than what he told the IRS. Every professional investor in America, private equity, search funds, family offices, all of them look at that and walk away. Not because the returns are bad, because they cannot underwrite it. You cannot write an investment memo that says the seller seems honest. And that discount, that gap between what the business is actually worth and what it sells for is not a flaw in the market. It is the entire opportunity. The 3.5 multiple exists specifically because nobody trusts the number, which means the whole game comes down to one skill. Can you independently verify the revenue? And you can. Because that seller's story might be fiction, but his water bill is not. I sat down in 2019 with a seller in Kansas City, a man named Gus, who wanted $520,000 for a store he swore was doing $19,000 a month. Very likable guy. Showed me a spreadsheet, with revenue by month going back 3 years, all handwritten, all suspiciously consistent. So I asked for the last 24 months of water bills. He got a little uncomfortable, which is always interesting, but he gave them to me. And what I did next is something anybody watching this video can do. I counted his machines and looked up the manufacturer's water consumption for each model. I knew what a full cycle consumed on every washer in that building. I took his total water usage from the utility bill, subtracted a reasonable allowance for the sinks and toilets and the mop bucket, and divided by the gallons per cycle. That gave me the number of wash cycles the store physically ran. Not what he said it ran, what the city of Kansas City metered coming into the building. Multiply that by his posted VEN prices, add the typical dryer ratio, and I had his gross revenue within about 5%. It was not $19,000 a month. It was a little over $12,700. Almost every operator I know does some version of this. Water bills, gas bills, and the collection reports off the card system if there is one. You sit in the store on a random Tuesday and a random Saturday and count people, and you check the meter yourself in the morning and again at night on a normal weekday. I told Gus what I found. He got quiet. Then he said the meter must be wrong. The meter is never wrong. I passed. Somebody else bought that store for $480,000, and I would bet real money they regret it. So here's where I've landed on this. After 15 years of looking at small businesses, the laundromat is not a great business because it's clever. It's a fairly dumb business, honestly. Sell hot water, rent floor space by the half hour, sweep up. It's a great business because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to buy something you can't audit. It's uncomfortable to spend a Saturday counting strangers with a clicker in your pocket. It's uncomfortable to hand somebody a check for $300,000 based on a water meter reading. And that discomfort is precisely why it still trades at 3.5 times earnings in a country where everything else got bid up to 20. You are not being paid for the laundry. You are being paid for being willing to do the work that verifies the number in a market where almost nobody bothers. That's true of the laundromat. It's true of the self-storage place, and the car wash, and the vending route, and about 11 other businesses that will never be featured in a magazine. The returns are sitting in the boring, unverifiable corners of the economy, and they've been sitting there the whole time. I think about that Sunday night in Columbus a lot. 22 years old, black trash bag, quarters in my pocket, feeling sorry for myself in a plastic chair. And the whole time I was sitting inside a 28% yield, and I couldn't see it because it looked like a laundromat. Most good things do look like something else first. If you want the actual worksheet I use for the water meter calculation, the one that turns a utility bill into a revenue estimate, I've put it in the description, along with the machine consumption tables and the lease checklist I go through before I look at a single financial statement. And if you're sitting on cash right now wondering where to put it, do me a favor. Drop a comment and tell me which boring business you'd actually buy. Laundromat, storage units, car wash, something else entirely. I read them, and the ones that come up the most are the ones I break down next. Subscribe if you want the rest of these, because I'm going through this whole category one business at a time. Next one is self-storage, and the numbers on that are genuinely stranger than this.